Hi, I'm Laura from Hunterdon County Division of Parks and Recreation. In celebration of Earth Day, perhaps you're looking for ways to make your yard more wildlife friendly. There is a lot we can do to make our yards attractive for wild animals. First, we can provide food for wildlife. We can, of course, provide birdseed. I would recommend black oil sunflower if you can find it. We can provide nectar for hummingbirds and suet, but many plants provide food as well. Trees with nuts, like oaks and hickories, are good for squirrels. Plants with seeds, like native grasses, coneflowers, and black-eyed Susans, are favored by birds like sparrows and goldfinches. And shrubs with berries, like this spice bush, are good for many birds during migration or as a winter food source. Native plants have high value for wildlife and need less water than many ornamentals. However, you may need to protect them from deer. Let's take a look at some of my favorite plants. The redbud is one of my favorite flowering trees because it is beautiful and native. You can see why it is called redbud. It has unique purplish buds that come directly off the stem itself. These will be flowering very soon. Once it is bigger, this tree should be able to hold its own against the deer. Winterberry holly is a beautiful shrub in the winter. It drops its leaves but maintains gorgeous red clusters of holly berries. These shrubs are eaten by birds later in the winter when other food sources become scarce. Just like regular holly, you will need a male and a female plant to get berries on the female plant. Over here is my rain garden. Rain gardens harvest water from the roof, the lawn, or a hard surface like a driveway. The water is taken in by native plants, which filter out bits of pollution that can be on these surfaces before releasing the water back into the ground. It's a great way to clean and reuse water and grow some beautiful plants. I will say that this is not an easy project if you have soil that doesn't drain well, like the clay that is found in most of central and southern Hunterdon County, as you will need to dig up this soil and replace it with sand, topsoil, and compost. I also had to dig a trench for the pipe that brings in the water from the roof. So the water comes in from the gutters on the roof. But this garden sure does look beautiful in the summer when everything is blooming. Some of the plants in here are cardinal flower. Cardinal flower is not quite coming up yet, but it will be soon. We have blue flag iris over here and bee balm over here, and sensitive fern as well. And also there is a native hibiscus in here. I chose these plants based on preference for wet soil, color, and also habitat for hummingbirds, bees, and butterflies. Another way to save water is by using a rain barrel. Rain barrels collect water from the roof through the gutter, and then the water is stored in this barrel. It can then be used for watering plants, for filling the bird bath, or for soaking your dishes. I made this one last year at Echo Hills workshop. On the subject of water, it's important to provide water for wildlife. Some people are lucky enough to have a stream, a pond, or a vernal pool, like this one, in their yard. But the easiest way to provide water, if you don't have a natural feature, is with a bird bath. This copper bird bath came with my house, but I would recommend, if you're going to buy one, to look for a cement, a clay, or a stone one. This seems to be a more preferred material than the metal. Providing shelter for wildlife is also important. Many of the trees and shrubs we already have in our yards can make excellent places to shelter. But we can also create brush piles on the edge of our yards as a hiding place for birds and small mammals. This is what you can do with all of the sticks that come down in storms, or the extra branches from when you trim your shrubs, or even an old Christmas tree. Providing nest boxes can also be helpful for certain species, especially if you want to be able to observe them at their nest sites. Here are some examples of nest boxes which you can buy or build yourself. This one has an eastern bluebird nest inside. The hole is no bigger than 1.5 inches across to exclude larger birds. We're just going to take a little peek inside here and notice that there is a nest right now with 4 bluebird eggs. They've made their nest with pine needles and grass. This large birdhouse is designed for an eastern screech owl if it's on a tree or in a more wooded habitat, or if you have a big open field, it might attract an American kestrel. This thin box that has an opening on the bottom instead of the front is designed for bats to roost in the summer. And this small home with paper tubes is designed for native bees. We do offer workshops at the parks at least once or twice a year where you can build some of these types of homes. Another thing to think about in your yard is sustainable gardening practices. Limiting pesticide use is one major thing that you can do to help wildlife, because little bits of extra pesticides can get into the soil and the water and then harming insects and bigger animals. Removing invasive species and planting native ones is another important practice. There is also a trend now in sustainable gardening to cut down on lawns, which aren't that great for wildlife, and to replace some of that lawn with a cultivated flower garden with native plants, a vegetable garden, or even a native meadow. Also, composting is a great way to cut down on trash going to a landfill, as well as to provide a natural fertilizer for your garden. As you spend time in your backyard this spring, I hope you can incorporate one or more of these practices into your routine for wildlife.